So we
Screen
were
share
okay. Can you see this?
Yeah, it is okay, right?
Okay, cool. So in previous class we were discussing about how to share data, right? Mainly between parent component or different components. So let's say I have a main parent component, and within that I can have multiple child components, right? One and another child component. So I can have as many components I want. But one of the things we were discussing in the previous classes, like how can we communicate between different components, not just between. Give me 1 second. Give me like a minute. I have to recharge
Yeah,
my headphones, so
yeah,
I'm
okay,
getting
okay.
another one.
Yeah.
Sorry for that. Can you guys hear me? Hello. Can you guys hear me? Hello. How about now? Can you guys hear me? Hello. Can someone talk if you can hear me, or can you at least message? Okay, cool. Okay, coming back to previous class. So we were discussing about how to share data between different components, right? I'll explain using a simple example. So I've created this application, the basic application, which has everything. So let us first remove that. And let me actually, apart from having the main component right now, let me local host 4200, right? Right now I don't have anything here. Here's basic class. Shravan says you cannot hear me. Okay, let me do another thing. How about now? Seven. Hello. Let me rejoin. Actually, I have some issues. Uh, Guys, I've um, hello guys, can you hear me now? Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, it is okay.
Okay, cool. Okay, I'm trying to log in now using a different method. Sorry for that, I have some issues with my earphones. Okay, coming back to this example, what I was discussing again, we were trying to communicate between different components, right? Earlier in previous class. So I can have a parent, main component, and child. And we were discussing like how can we actually send data from parent to child. So this is one of the most important things. So communication between different components. So we can have a basic web page where nothing communicates, but we want to make it more interactive. So one of the key things is communication. So between different components, because always remember, Angular is nothing but components and components and components. So when we're talking, like for example, if we have a building or something, right? In a big building, it is nothing but, it can be mostly like bricks, right? And cement if we are doing it in India. So similar to that, we have the HTML page and it consists of components. It's similar to what the bricks are to a building. So we would have multiple one of these components. And another thing is we should be able to communicate between different components. Anyways, coming back to our example. So let's say I have this one here. Let me create a child component here, and we can see how we can communicate. Let me see terminal new, and within here cd source, and within that app, let me create a new ngGC new component. Let me call it a child component. So once I do that, it would create the child component here. So right now, I don't have anything in app component.html, but let's try to get the child component and put that component in here. So I would say app child and trying to insert it. So once I do that, you see that it simply says child works. Okay. And here I've added that, and in here I don't have anything. And here I have basic child works. It doesn't have much. So let us try changing that. I want to actually send some data from this app component. So from the parent to the child. Okay. I just want to send something simple. Let's say I want to send a name from my parent component, which is app component. App component HTML is the parent because that app component, when I've created that, this is the main app component, let's say. And within that, I put the child component. So I've included a tag in here. So the top one becomes a parent, and the bottom one within which I have the component becomes a child. Okay, anyways, it's simple to understand, right? So I have the parent component. I want to transfer something to the child component. So I have just the tag in here for the child component.html. And let me say I want to send something simple as, let's say, name of something. So in order to do that, the first thing I have to set up is I should be able to accept something in the child component. So to do that, we have a particular attribute. It's called input. So I would simply say at input. Okay. And I would specify what value I want to accept. So this is the child component. Now it's simply saying I would be able to accept anything which you're going to send to me. Okay. Now let's say I want to send the name of a T. So I'm simply saying T name and string equal to, now I'm declaring, initially I'm declaring it to be empty, but let's use string interpolation. If you guys remember, I would simply put two curly braces here and mention the name of the whatever I have in the TypeScript. So simply I'm just passing this value to our child. Okay. As of now, if I go back here, I still don't have anything, but in app component.html, I want to pass it from here, right? So it's as simple as specifying what is the thing we are going to accept here. I am saying I would accept T name here. So let us get back to here and let's say this is child, right? So now child component simply says it is going to accept T name, right? So in order to pass that name from app component to here, I just have to simply specify that in the tag wherever I'm using the child tag. So in here, simply have to say whatever I have in the input here. Okay, so I have T name, so I would simply pass that, and I can specify the variable name. Okay. So it works similar to how we have the string interpolation. I simply have to define something here. Let me say T name equal to, okay, let's say Taj, something like that. So I've defined it in the app component.ts. I'm passing it to HTML, and in here I'm passing that value to our app child. So immediately it would look at this attribute. It says it has an attribute called tname. Okay, would go back to our child component.ts and see, okay, I have a name called tname or a attribute or an input called tname, and it would automatically pass to that. So now you can see that it's getting the Taj Mahal. Okay, the simplest way of doing this is not doing any of that, but simply putting Taj Mahal, right? I would have the same effect, but I'm trying to pass data. I'm trying to show you guys how to pass data from one component to another. So this is how I do that. So all I have to do is I have to specify the input attribute. I have to say what name I'm going to accept. So in here, I'm saying tname, and in app component, I should simply specify that value here. Okay, and I would use simple things I've used before, like attribute and equal to whatever value I want to pass. Okay, is this clear? Any questions?
No.
Okay. Any questions, Lakshmi? Okay.
There are no types.
If you're trying to speak, we're not able to hear. It's probably on mute. Okay. So I have the important thing is at input. So let's say I want to pass another value or accept. First thing I have to make sure is child component accepting it. In order to make it accept that, I have to simply again put an input, right? So if I want any additional values to be accepted, so I can, if I want to do something like that at input and whatever attribute name I want to do that. Okay, let's say I don't want to expose the name tname, but I want to use an alias. Alias is a different name, right? If I want to do that, I would the input at input, I would simply put single quotations, and in here I would specify something, right? For example, I want it to be called as t. So I can simply, if I do that, now let's go back here. You see, it doesn't get the value because here I'm saying t, but in here I'm saying tname. So I simply have to change that. So in which case, again, I got that back. So if I want to use an alias, like if I want to not specify use this one, but if I want to specify something else, there are instances where you may want to do that. Okay, so I guess no questions so far. So I'll continue with this one. So far we have seen a way of passing data from parent to child, right? It doesn't have to be always parent to child, but it can be between multiple components. But anyways, so in order to pass data from parent to child, I'm using something called input, right? I'm using an attribute at input. Okay, let me ask you a simple question. So since I'm sending data or accepting data in the child component, I'm using input. If I want to send data back to parent, can you guys guess what name would it be? So this is input, right? What would the other direction be? Okay, I would, it's output. So if I'm accepting something, it's input. If I want to send some data back, it's output. Okay, so I can simply send the data from the child component to parent component using output. And I can only do that using events. So that is what I have to define. So here, when I'm trying to send accept data, I'm just using an attribute name. But if I want to send some data from the child to the parent, I have to use output. So let's say output, and I've mentioned that it should be an event. Okay, so I would let me define an event, new item event, and it is of type event emitter. And whatever type of data I want to send, I would simply put here. Right now I want to send string. So that is what I'm trying to do. And have another event emitter and string. You have event. Okay, I see what happened. Okay, anyways, so all I have to define is I have to define it as an event emitter. So when I want to send some data, accept some data, it's an attribute. But when I want to send some data, it's an event. So if you guys remember an event is something, what happens when you do something else, right? Like when I click a button, I can define an event, or when something changes. So I can define an event. So in order to actually send data, I've defined an event, but let us also, how can we actually send an event, right? Let me define a button here. And let us define when we click on something, something changes. And since I've also specified that here, I should also change it, specify the name of the function. Okay. Let me say I want to change that to green label. Okay, I'll explain it in a bit. And in here, I have to define whatever thing I mentioned in the output. And since this is an event, I have to specify it in those braces. And since this is also an event, right, I have to define a function in app component. It's similar to what we have done before, like when I specify an attribute here, right, I do the same thing here. And in other words, simply, I'm defining my own events, like for child component. So earlier, I've defined my own attribute, right? I've defined my own attribute called tName. And whenever some other external component has to, or in our case, T, whenever some other external component has to communicate with us, it has to use an attribute T. Similar to that, I'm also defining my own event, right? So in order to do that, it has to, whatever I've defined here, the output, new item event, has to use the same event. Okay, anyways, so for events, if you guys remember, we always use functions in order to communicate back to our TypeScript. So we have to define a function here. Let me say, since I'm trying to change the name of the T, I'll say change tName. Okay. Another thing, if you would notice here, okay, I'm trying to whatever value I want to pass from our child component, I have to say it in the, I would send it from the emit. Okay. First thing is I would define my output as an event emitter. Okay. Whatever I have here. Okay. Next thing I have to do is I have to emit. So whatever I have as the value in here, whenever I'm saying emit, that is a value. It's a value which gets passed to the parent component. So two things I have to make sure. First thing is I have to say output and define it as an event emitter. Second thing I have to do is emit. Whenever I say emit, that is when the child component sends the data. So first thing is get output. I have to define that. Second thing is, and which is nothing but an event emitter. So in case of input, it's just an attribute. So that is what we're trying to do. We just have a variable and we're just sending that data. In case of output, I have to define an event emitter. I have to say emit. So once I say emit, whatever value I have within here, it can be a string, it can be a integer, it can be a number, it can be a Boolean or whatever. Whatever I specify in the emit, that is the value which gets passed back to the parent component. So I would say emit and value, whatever value I want to give, and that is the value. So gets passed here, and it would, the parent would receive that. And in case of input, I'm just using an attribute name, but in case of output, I would simply define it as an event. So whatever name I give here, let's say output event emitter, and let's say value change, whatever name I give here, I should do the same thing here. And since this is an attribute, not an attribute, but an event, I should be closing that. And I have to specify a function name. Okay. Any questions so far? This is clear. I'll show you guys how it changes. Okay, let's say in change t name, I want to actually change the name of the t to whatever is being passed here. So, okay, I guess that means no questions. In here, I have to pass some data. So let's say, what did I say? Change t name. Okay. And if you guys remember, whenever we have event, we would just pass a $sign event back to our TypeScript. So that is what we're trying to do here as well. But in our case, we already know what the value is, right? If you look at child component, I'm emitting a string. That is all I'm trying to do. So I can simply say the name change is nothing but a string, since that is what I'm trying to emit from here. Okay, string, and that is what the name change would be here. And let us go back here. Okay, the button, I have a button, but I didn't specify anything here. So let's say change to name to, let's keep it simple. It has Taj Mahal, but once I click on that, it sends green label. So initially, I'm trying to send the T name, right, from the parent to child, which is nothing but Taj Mahal, right? That is what I was trying to send initially. Okay, but once I click a button in the child component, it's sending green label, and that is what we are seeing back in here in the main HTML page. Okay. Might be confusing, but simply to remember, we're doing nothing but creating our own attributes, right? This is an attribute, T is an attribute, and events. And that is how we are trying to communicate between one component and another component. And just remember this thing. So from the parent to child, it would be input. From child to parent, it would be output. And it would be an attribute when we are trying to send some parent data to child data. In reverse, when I'm trying to send child data to parent, it would be output, input and output, attribute and event. So that is all you have to remember. Whatever you want to send, it would be in the emit. So if I want to change that to be from green label to red label, simply I would change this. And once I click on this, it gets the red label. Okay. So let's say I don't want to send a static value, right? Right now I'm saying simply add new item, or why did I say add new item? But anyways, sorry, the name is a little confusing. So right now I'm trying to send just red label or green label or whatever I'm trying to specify here. But we don't always want to send static data, right? I want to send a dynamic data. Like I want to specify what T name I want to specify, and I want to send that. So in order to do that, we can create a text box, right? Where it would accept some value. So input type equal to text. Okay. And we have seen, or I don't know if I did teach you guys, but let's say enter the name, right? Let me create it. Class equal to container. Okay, I haven't defined bootstrap in here, so let me forget about that. Okay, enter T name, type equal to text, and let's say, okay, so right now I have enter T name, I have a text box. Let's say I want to send 3 roses instead of either one of those, but it's still sending red label, right? I have to somehow know what value I have in here, right? That is what I want to do. Okay. One of the ways we can actually do this is by using a local reference name, okay? Local reference. So what is local reference, right? So I have defined the input, which is of type text, and I can actually give it an ID, okay? I mean, we have a standard ID, but this is not what I'm talking about. Come on, this is not what I'm talking about. We have another thing called local reference in Angular, where I can actually define the particular name for this one. So I'm simply saying hash, and let's say t change here, okay? So right now, this is how I can actually communicate, from the text box. Like this is what I can say. This is the ID of the text box. And if I want to pass that value, all I have to do is t change. I have to do this. So in this way, whatever the input type equal to text, I'm trying to send the entire element, not just the value in here. I'm trying to send the entire element. I'll show you in a bit what I'm actually talking about. Okay. So add new item. and in going back to our child component, okay, earlier we didn't have any value, right? It's an empty, right? I'm not passing any value, but now I want to pass t change. T change is nothing but a input, the entire input. So in order to access that, here I would simply say give the name. Okay, it can be, it is nothing but t change. Okay, and since I don't, since this is a type of element, right? It's an element. I don't want to specify anything in particular. I can simply say any. If it's a string, I would simply say string. If it's a number, I would say number, Boolean or Boolean. But if it's something complicated, like, I want to send the entire information of this particular element, I wouldn't actually say element, but I can simply use any. Okay. So for an input, the value is what actually shows, right? Let's say if I'm saying red label here. Okay, if you refresh here, you see this is the value in the text box. Value defines, okay, value down here is nothing but what is shown in the text box. Okay, I've shown you this so that I can actually do another change. So I'm getting t change, right? Whatever value I'm getting, but what is the value of it? It's nothing but t change dot value. Sorry, look at lowercase v. So since I'm trying to send the entire text box, not just the value of it, I have to specify t change dot value, since that is the actual value of it. Okay, anyways, let me go back here. I want to change to red label. Now I would simply say name, change name. And you see it's changed that. I want to specify something else, like let's say group bond. I would click on that. So it's changing to that. So what I'm trying to do is nothing but I'm trying to give it a name, and using that name, I can pass anything. And again, remember, I can only do this in the HTML page. Okay, the local reference, whatever I've defined, right? So I have a HTML page and a TypeScript, right? Okay, whatever local reference I'm using, since I'm saying, you can see the name, right? Local reference. So it only belongs to the HTML page. I cannot directly access in the TypeScript. So if I want to access this t change here, right? I cannot do that. I cannot simply say t change dot, and I wouldn't be able to get that. I can only pass this value to our TypeScript, from HTML to TypeScript using functions. So, and here in this function, when I'm clicking, I'm passing that value t change. Any questions about what a local reference is or how we are able to access that? Another thing, okay, I'll give you guys a minute. If it's clear, just put a message. It's clear. If you have any questions, you can type or ask me. Okay. Yes, it's clear. So let me or any questions regarding anything else? These are really important concepts because you wouldn't just have one component. Yes, Anvesh. So easy to send output. So Lakshmi asked me, so is it to send? So I'm just simply defining. So when I'm using a local reference, I'm saying, okay, where is this? Okay.
Hi.
Yep. I can hear you.
Yeah. A little confusion about
Mhm.
hash, that local reference.
Mhm.
So is it like we are sending the value dynamically?
Yep.
I mean, okay.
So whatever value I have here,
Okay.
it gets passed. And I'm not just sending the value in the text box, I'm
Okay.
sending the entire text box.
Okay.
So yeah, that is what I'm trying to do. So since,
Okay.
yeah, so,
Okay.
I guess that's clear.
Yeah, understood. Thank you.
And any questions regarding output or input?
No, Anvesh, it's clear.
Okay, cool. So let me go back here. And local reference, again, I'm mentioning, it's the entire text box, or I can also have another thing here. If I'm trying to reference a div in here, I would simply put hash and give it a name, whatever name you want to, like a div1. So anyways, so this is one of the ways actually passing, value from here to the, we can also use, again, attributes, right? Earlier we have defined like t change or t value. I don't have to do this. There is also another way. If you guys remember, it's using string interpolation, right? So, or you can also use ng model, since we want to have a two-way binding. So this is one of the ways of doing the transferring or sharing data between TypeScript and HTML. And this is another way. And it depends on your situation, what we are trying to do. I can use a local reference and pass it through the function, or I can use a ng model, or I can use a string interpolation. There are many ways, but this is one of the way. And okay. So, okay, let me create I want to show you guys another example. Okay, enter another value. And text. Let's say another value. Okay, earlier I've shown you one way of sending data, right? I would define the local reference here, and I would send back using the name or using this function. Okay, what if I want to access the value, whatever text box or whatever, this local reference within the TypeScript directly without actually using the function? So there is a way for there is a way for that as well. So it's called view child. I would simply define view child. Within this, I would simply say what value I'm trying to access. So in here, I want to access another value. So simply use hash and define the name and pass that in the view child. Okay. And define the local name, whatever it is. So let's say I want to access that value using another t name. And remember, whenever we're trying to pass this entire input from our HTML to TypeScript, we simply use called a type called element ref. Similar to a string, or and I also have to import element ref here. So element ref is part of Angular code. Okay, if you guys get any errors, make sure you have all the imports correct. Anyways, so this is another way. So one way is defining that, passing it through a function. Another way is defining it here. And in the TypeScript, I would simply specify view child and specify whatever value I have here in the hash. I would simply say view child, whatever value, and define that, and I can actually send that value. And let's say I don't want to send value from the first text box, but I want to send the value from second text box, right? Don't want to change the name based on the first t name, or let me create to avoid any confusion, let me create another button. Or okay, in this example, I just want to send this value. Okay, I don't want to send the value from the first text box. Okay, I want to access this second text box, another value, which I've defined here, and I'm getting the value from here. So in order to get value from that, another t name, and there is a special property for that. In order to access, I'm sorry, I didn't see the message. Okay. Shravan, you had some question. You said no. Okay, anyways, so so this is just another way. So so there are many ways of transferring data between different components, or I'm just explaining all of those. There is it depends on your circumstance. You may want to use a different thing. Okay, coming back to here. Earlier, you have seen if I want to just access a value, all I had to do is simply specify whatever component I'm accessing, or whatever tag I'm accessing, right? And the name of the attribute, like just value. But if I'm using view component, view child, if I'm using view child, I cannot do that. I have to use something else. Okay. So first thing would be another t name. Okay. But the only change between that and this is I would simply say native element, dot native element. So when I say dot native element, then it actually accesses this text box. Earlier, I can directly use that, but now I have to simply specify it's a native element, dot native element, and dot, again, value, since I'm trying to get the value of it. So that is all. So let us go back here. Let's say in that, and it's changed down here. Here, if I input something, it wouldn't change because I'm actually sending it from the second one. It doesn't change. Okay. So there are different ways of accessing the same value. So another value using local reference here, sending it through function, or using local reference here and using a view child here. So that is all. Any questions about any of these? Okay. Okay, cool. So just going through my notes, just seeing if I have something else. Okay, so let's say I would just discuss this one concept and give you guys an assignment. So let me say I have an app component .html. As of now, I only have app shell, right? Let me create something called something simple like a paragraph. So let's say this is from parent, right? Okay. And I have a paragraph here as well. Okay. Let me refresh it. Okay. It has HTML here. It says this is parent. This is from parent. Okay. And now the child component, let me define a style for the paragraph. Okay. Why is this? Okay, empty result set. Okay, fine. So I want to change the color to be blue color, and then simply say blue. Okay. As you can expect, just the value of this is blue, right? It didn't change the value of parent or any other component. Okay. So in Angular in particular, there is a concept called encapsulation. So whenever I say encapsulation in simple English terms, it simply says I'm trying to hide it, or I'm trying to just have it within that. Whenever I change something at one place, it doesn't automatically affect other place. So when I say encapsulate, so if I change something in here, doesn't affect anything outside. Okay, that is what we're trying to, that is what we are seeing, right? I just change the style in the child component to blue, paragraph color to blue, and I also have the paragraph in parent, and that then changed to blue. It is just black. But because all of this is encapsulated within the child, so whatever styles you want to apply for the child, just do that. It doesn't affect the parent, or vice versa. If I have, let's say, in parent, I have specified the background color to be red, okay, and you can guess, okay, or simply color to be red. You can simply see the color changed to red. Okay, this is because in Angular, every component is to itself. It doesn't, styles or anything you have doesn't actually affect the anything outside or beside it. So you might think, since we applied the style for parent, it should affect the child, right? It doesn't do that. It's always contained within. Okay, but if you don't want that to be the case, but if you change something, okay, in child or in app or something, you want that to be affected every other place. So for that, there's a particular property. within the component, I would simply define something called view encapsulation. Why doesn't it say encapsulation? For that, I can have an enum with the different values. It's always emulated. Whenever it says emulated, it simply means it's contained within itself. So if I put red here, it's red. It doesn't change outside. Or if I put red here, this is red. It doesn't change anything inside. That is the default behavior whenever I say emulated. So simply saying emulated also means I don't even need to have it because that is the default behavior. But if I say none, there is property called none. Now you can see in CSS, I have the blue color and here I have the parent. And you see it actually affected the parent as well. So whenever I say encapsulation and I say none, view encapsulation none, it actually changes the style of the others as well, not just the current one. So in case in the future, if you want to do something as such, define a style somewhere and that to be affected everywhere else, you would simply use this property. If you don't have this, none, okay, then it doesn't do anything. You see the color going from blue to black again. So if I have that, it's blue. Is that clear? The encapsulation. Or any other questions? Okay, cool. So I'll stop the class here since we have discussed quite new concepts: input, output, view child, again, reference, local reference within the HTML page and how to send that, and local reference within the HTML page and how to access that in the TypeScript using view child. So, and that's of type element ref. And always remember, if you want to access the actual element, I have to specify dot native element. And that is how I would access all of those properties. And yep. And also view encapsulation. Okay, I will share this again through GitHub. You guys go through this and I'll give you an assignment in just a bit, but it's important that you practice this because without practicing, it may be confusing later on for you guys. Okay. Have a simple question for you guys. Let me. All right. Okay. Are you guys able to create the GitHub account and tie it up to your Visual Studio? Did you guys do that already, or do you still have trouble? Shravan? Okay. What, you're not able to sync it? Okay, I'll do that after class some other time. How about Lakshmi? Do you have any? Do you have any issues?
No, always, yeah. Doing, going through the videos.
Okay, cool. So if you have, okay, if you haven't, so did you already create that, or were you already able to?
Yeah, I've created already.
And you're
GitHub
able to,
account.
Okay, cool. Were you able to connect your source control here to your,
I
GitHub?
haven't done this yet. I've been connecting my project to the GitHub account. Actually, I have to do.
Okay, so do that. I
Okay.
want you guys to do that, especially because of a few reasons. First thing is you would have your own GitHub account online. Advantages like in case you don't have the code locally or something gets deleted, you still have access to your GitHub account online and you can always get your code back. And also it's a good way of showing it to someone else. Like these are the projects I worked on. And say this is like for interview or for a job. And also it's a good way of sharing data with me or sharing your products with me. But anyways, please do that. I will send you guys an assignment. I want you guys to finish it. If you are not able to, connect to the GitHub account, just zip it and send it to me. So I would have a look at it. Yeah, Lakshmi, were you saying something?
No one was there.
Okay. Yeah, it was on mute, so I was wondering. Okay. Okay. If you don't have any questions, I will continue the class tomorrow. Tomorrow, maybe even shorter class. Okay. Thanks, guys. I will talk to you tomorrow then. Bye.
Bye.